Okay, this is the IC7300 network remote controller system that I've built. This completely controls the 7300 over an Ethernet connection. I say Ethernet, you don't actually have to have that. Of course, it will work on Wi-Fi, so you can connect it to a local hotspot, or in my case I actually run it via my mobile phone. It only uses about 35 kilobits per second, so it's not too greedy, and you can use your data allowance for it. Okay, so what can this do? Well, we've got the audio. Signal's not particularly strong there at the moment. We've got all the usual functions. We've sort of got mode, we've got transmit, we can go VFO, VFO A and B and so on. Transmit, okay. See we're transmitting there. Go back on to receive. We've got some other functions here. Noise blanker, noise reduction, the notch, and you can slide these up and down to adjust the levels. We've got audio memories there if you wish to transmit, you know, CQ contest or whatever. Filters, and that's a button to turn on the linear amplifier if I want to, and you can have direct frequency entry. This end of it is based on an Arduino driving the screen here, and then there's a Raspberry Pi used for all the network side of things. At the radio end we've got another Raspberry Pi, so let's have a look at that as well. This is the radio interface. We've got this box, contains another Raspberry Pi. We've got a lead going to the accessory socket at the back of the radio. We've got a CI5 lead to give the radio the commands it needs to make it do what we want it to, and then we've got a lead here going off to the network. This is Ethernet based. It could run on Wi-Fi. I don't see any point because it's always adjacent to the radio and next to an Ethernet connection. And also, of course, Wi-Fi in a die-cast box is probably not the best of ideas. Okay, I've taken the screws out of the top of it, so let's have a look inside and see what's in here. Well, let's just do it at that angle as a starter. You can see we've got the actual display here, and this board here is the driver for the display. Then on the back of it we've got an Arduino Mega 2560, perhaps see it a little bit better there. Speaker, this is merely an audio amplifier, it's got no other role other than to drive the speaker. There's an interface board here. This is mainly voltage shifting. We've got, that's just a 3.3 to 5 volt shifter, mainly because the Arduino's on 5 volts but the Raspberry Pi is on 3.3. There's a little switch mode, I don't know what they call it, buck and boost. Basically the whole thing runs on 12 volts, but that runs on 5, that runs on 5, and rather than use a linear regulator and all the heat that comes off it, I've just used a little converted box thing. Raspberry Pi, nothing clever here. It's what's known as headless. In other words, it doesn't have a screen, it doesn't have a keyboard attached. What it's got here, it's not particularly easy to see, is a USB audio connection. Although the Raspberry Pi has an audio out, it doesn't have an audio in, so the only realistic way to get audio in and out is through a USB dongle, which connects round to the two sockets here, which are for the microphone and for the speaker, or headset I should say. The RJ45, well, it merely comes off there, does a little loop, and then a back-to-back RJ45 connector. So there's not a lot in it. If I put the power on, all we'll see is a load of lights. Okay, well, let's just see if we can do that. It's all very pretty. Everything now has to have some sort of an LED on it, so we've got an LED on the Raspberry Pi. The green one's flashing as it's starting to boot up. The blue one there is merely on the power supply to tell you it's working. So nothing particularly complicated. Most of the effort is in the programming of the Mega 256, which both draws the screen and manages the touches, as well as generating the CI5 codes which are passed to the Raspberry Pi, which then go to the far end to actually drive the radio. Okay, let's have a look in the far end then and see what's in that. Okay, here's the radio end of the control system. somewhat simpler than the other end because it's got no display. Got a Raspberry Pi, a 12 volt to 5 volt converter to supply the Raspberry Pi, and some circuitry here, the main role of which is to combine the transmit and the receive data lines into a single line, which is the standard for the CI5 for ICOM. So nothing much here at all. Oh, and of course we've got the USB to audio, which comes down here and then out on that lead to the rear of the radio. Okay, so that's the radio end of the system. Okay, so there we have it, the IC7300 network remote controller. I haven't published any of this. If anybody really is interested, then contact me and we'll talk about what I can give you, and I might be happy to give you some help in getting it built. Okay, hope you enjoyed that. Bye bye.